Welcome to the Elephant in the Room. We're excited this morning to be here, excited to get this started. The Elephant in the Room, where we talk about common topics, asking uncommon questions. Our goal is to provide truth, information, and inspiration. Now, we're not going to tell you what to do, but we hope from what we talk about, you will be inspired to take action. Now, we're going to ask questions that people are thinking, but nobody's really saying anything. The elephant in the room. I'm Edwin T. Lee.
I'm Keith Jackson.
All right, and this morning we have some guests that we're excited about. We just really been looking forward to this. We have Champion and Delnita Smith here with us, and they're going to be sharing some experiences, some expertise, and about marriage. We're going to be talking about marriage, the state of marriage, the state of Christian marriage. The question is marriage still the goal? And then why is marriage looked upon, the way it is? And then just kind of hit some hard questions about the state of marriage. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I guess here is going to chime in. But first, we're going to want them to introduce themselves and kind of tell us a little bit about themselves, because Delnita, you're a life coach, relationship coach, and you got a conference coming. You got some things that are going on, and we want the people to know what's going on, and just kind of introduce yourselves to the audience and kind of give us a feel for what you do and where you're going and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Well, my name is Delnita Smith, and I am a life coach and relationship coach, as Edwin shared. Mm-hmm. And let's see, something that we have coming up is our marriage retreat. Mm-hmm. It's called Lead with Love Couples Retreat, and it's for married and engaged couples. And this is my husband,
Champion Smith. Great, outstanding.
Yes. Okay, all right, well, good. We're going to just jump right on in. We're going to jump right on into this. And again, Delnita, what motivated you? How did you get to here to be a coach and to want to do it? How did that all take place?
Well, what got me here to being a coach is basically I've been a hairstylist, cosmetologist, professional for about 28 years plus. And from behind my chair, I've always been that prayer partner, that confidant, that counselor. Mm-hmm. And what I came to realize as I furthered in my career is that I have been coaching and counseling people from behind my chair for decades. Mm-hmm. And so understanding that I could have a greater reach and reach women to help them to heal and be healthier in their relationships going forward from the time behind my chair, when I realized that I could reach outside of those four walls, I was just amazed. And that's what really motivated me and brought me to this place of being a life coach and relationship coach.
Now, having said that, since you mentioned that and the types of relationships that you established as a result, meeting all different types of women as a cosmetologist from all walks of life, mm-hmm. I'm sure you came across many women that, for example, that maybe attend places of worship, faith, right, and things like that. And so that's actually where we're going to start our discussion. Okay. And I wanted to get your take, your expert opinion, being a life coach. I read a statistic that talked about the divorce rate being higher in the household of faith or the church than among non-believers. And I'm curious as to, and the question would be, why would you think that would be the case? And what would be your from your experience in the different in this case different women that you've come across, or people in general, what would be your opinion in regards to that that statistic? How would what would be your response to that?
Well, my opinion, but then just my experience with coaching women through their life issues and, just challenges that they have in relationships. Mm-hmm. One of the main things that I have found and that I find within myself, that there's so many areas that we don't take the time to heal first
Okay.
before getting into a
That's
relationship.
good.
And I mean, relationship, and then even greater than that, a marriage. That's a covenant, you know?
Yes.
And so that's a whole different set of expectations, a whole different set of accountability.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of healing that we haven't taken the time
Okay.
to do.
Mhm.
And, you know, as far as the statistic, the thing that comes to mind for me is a lot of times in the church, you know, we feel like we have our spiritual leaders, we have, you know, we have the Bible,
Yes.
we have our relationship with God,
Mhm.
we have the Holy Spirit. But one of the things that we feel like we don't necessarily need sometimes is professional help.
Okay.
You know, so a lot of times we don't go to those places of doing counseling, of doing coaching to get
Mhm.
strategies to heal within ourselves before getting into a marriage.
Mhm.
And then once you enter
Mhm.
into that relationship, you realize how much healing you needed to do
Yes.
before even
Yes.
getting
That's
there.
right.
Mhm.
So, do you feel, which is actually a lead in for my next question? So, do you feel that there's a disconnect between the faith community, particularly among the African American faith community, and mental health?
For
Because mental
sure.
health is a real thing.
Right.
And too often times, you know, I know with me growing up, you know, mental health was reserved for those, you know, individuals that had, you know, mental issues, and you were, you know, you had those quote unquote family members that, you know, you was kind of separate from, you know, things of that nature. But
Everybody
we
know
discussed,
about, but nobody
yeah,
said nothing.
exactly.
Right.
But we know now
Mhm.
that, again, mental health is a real issue, even across denomination and racial lines.
Exactly.
But getting back to the American community, African American community, particularly the faith community, as being specific, do you see that disconnect in your experience? Do you actually see that disconnect? Because, you know, you hear all of that, well, pray about it, the Lord to do this, the Lord to do that. And then, so the question is, are you really addressing the real issue, to your earlier point?
Right.
You know, so do you see that disconnect?
For sure. For sure. There is definitely the disconnect there between addressing mental health issues and being in faith. You know, the misconception is that, you know, because you have faith, you don't need the professional help,
Mhm.
or that you don't need
Mhm.
strategies, or that you don't need, in some cases, people may need medication, you know, to balance their hormones, to balance the chemical, you know, the chemicals in their brain and their bodies. And so the misconception is because you have faith, you don't need that.
That's right.
But that is a misconception.
The old saying
And-
is Jesus is enough, huh?
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, and he is enough,
Yes.
which is why God gave man the wherewithal
Mhm.
to come up with strategies.
Absolutely.
All good thing, I believe every good thing comes from above.
Yes.
The word says
yes.
that.
Right.
Yes.
Every good thing. So everything that we can think of that can help someone else,
Mm-hmm.
you better believe the Holy
Mhm.
Spirit downloaded that.
Yes.
Whether you think you're a believer or not.
Thus,
Like nothing good comes
Mhm.
from anywhere other than God.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's the truth.
Mhm.
And so that's why Jesus is enough. And
Right.
so,
Yes.
you know, that is his provision.
Mhm.
He's given man strategies, and he's given us, you know, the things that we need to be able to function down here in this flesh and dealing with the things that we deal with in this life, you know? And so, yeah, I do see that disconnect.
Thus, that point that we talked about in his word, all things work together.
All
Right.
things
all
work
of those
together.
things. So these are all components
Right.
of how God establishes and reaches us
Exactly.
and heals us. You know?
Another misconception too is that I believe some people feel like because their trauma may not be as great as someone else's. You know, they may feel like,
Okay.
oh, well, I don't need help. I can just pray about that. I can handle that on my own.
Mhm.
But when something comes up, especially in a relationship that triggers that,
Mhm.
then how do you respond? How
Absolutely.
do you overcome that? You know, how do you deal with knowing you have this issue, or that you have this hang up, or this thing that really makes you angry or can't function or know how to set boundaries?
Right.
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
Right.
You know, when you haven't had the help or the strategies to be able to overcome that thing. You know.
Okay.
Right. That one he was saying that the divorce rate, and I'm thinking to myself, we're the church, we should be the example. If anybody should be able to survive, we should.
That's right.
But if we're not, what hope do the world,
Right.
here again, what hope do the world have if the church can't get
Absolutely.
together?
Right.
So I think that's very important that we become self-aware enough to, and then humbling ourselves.
Right.
I think that's a I think humility is a large,
a huge
part of it, because some people just will not humble themselves. I need to get help, or to ask for help, or to acknowledge that they need help.
Well, when you think about it, in our community too, the it's always been like taboo.
Right.
Yes.
Asking for help or
Right.
getting help means, oh, she's crazy or he's crazy. No, that's something actually that has been, I've seen shifting too in our community over the past several years, is that we've become more aware of the need for help with mental health, mental health, and emotional well-being.
Yes.
And so that's a good thing.
Or saying that or you're weak, you can't.
Exactly.
You're weak,
you're weak.
You need to be strong. You need to toughen up. You need to, you know what I mean.
Or like you said, in the Christian community, how many people feel like, oh, if I do that, am I still in faith?
Right.
That's right.
Or am I
Right.
still
We
in
had that
faith?
conversation.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Absolutely.
So yeah, for sure.
Now you mentioned shifts, and I want to pose this question to your husband. And this is what I learned even in my own marriage. February 10th will be 29 years for my wife and I.
Awesome.
Now, one of the things that I discussed in I found out in my marriage, not necessarily from a husband's or a man's point of view, but just the point of view in general. And you both can chime in, but I want to start out with your husband first, Champion. Is that I found out, and one of the dynamics, you hear people all the time say, well, my husband or wife, this is the same person. But the truth of the matter is, my wife is a different woman than she was 5 years ago.
Right.
Circumstance changed, needs change, and a lot of times we don't understand, we don't recognize the shift. And when you don't recognize the shift, you'll find yourself going in different directions. There were seasons in my marriage in which that was the case. But we learned, we learned through, through our faith, our prayer time, and then just the communication with one another. And we talk about, oftentimes you hear in marriages how important communication is.
Right.
Well, it's important to communicate when you hit that turn.
Right.
And so my wife and I, we've been able to navigate, and it's still, our marriage, any marriage will always be a work in progress. Always improving things of that nature. And too often times you hear this saying that, this is the same person, this is who you are. So what would be, Champion, what would be your take or opinion on that in regards to the nuances and the changes within the context of marriage from your vantage point?
Well, from my vantage point, I just think, first of all, as an individual, you have to get yourself one-on-one in tune with God.
Yes.
And then you definitely have to get yourself in a situation where you're willing to change certain things about yourself, so that when you're dealing, with your spouse or just being in a marriage, just in general, that you'll be able to generate a lot of positive things, and just be willing to change.
Okay.
Just one of the things that I know, within our marriage, I knew that first of all, I had to change. You have to take that. You have to take that responsibility with yourself and say, okay, this is what I need to do. I can't worry about what she needs to do.
Just simply own up to a few things.
You got to own up to a few things in order for things to work and to move.
Right.
And you know what I'm saying? So that was one of the things that I knew going into our marriage, that I know what I needed to do. So the thing is, and I just feel like in order for, just for marriage in general to just like you said at first, every marriage is a work in progress.
Yes.
And it's a constantly work in progress
Yes.
every day,
That's right.
each and every day. So the thing is, you have to continue to just keep yourself in tune with God.
Yes.
And saying, okay, hey, I need to work on this, I need to work on that. And that way, you know, when you two come together,
Yes.
that you'll be able to work, work things out, be able to get, move things, you know, in order and stuff like that. Yes, there's times there are going to be some issues, some conflict and stuff like that. But the thing is, if you have yourself in tune with God,
Yes.
things will work out, and things will always work out.
Right.
And this is, if I understand you correctly, it's what your wife alluded to. It's part of your self-healing process.
Yes.
So you can be whole coming into the relationship. I heard this, and it's so true when I think about it. I don't know where I heard it from, but it rings true. When we've been somewhat conditioned for the culture. And what I mean when I say that is that when you look around, there seems to be this acquiesce to everything that's going around, and it's taken away from who we are in marriage, particularly those of us in the African American community. And in this condition, in this culture of being self-absorbed, looking after self, getting that bag, doing all these type of things, as some of these kids would say. Do you feel it rings true? The statement made that many people prepare for the wedding instead of the marriage.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. You know, the wedding is the most exciting part of it. And then you get married.
Right.
And then there's life.
Right.
So yeah, definitely people are more excited about the wedding. And you know, I know that people are excited about sharing life with that person that they love, you know, that they're just excited and ready to be with and share life with, you know. However, when you're thinking about your wedding, you're not thinking about the challenges that may arise.
That's
you know what I mean?
That's right.
So, and then to your statement about coming into a relationship whole or into a marriage whole, I think we're whole for that season.
Right.
But there are always things that we're gonna have to address.
Absolutely.
Always. So we never show up completely whole.
Right.
Okay.
We just have to be willing to deal with issues as they arise. And we have to be whole in the fact that, okay, we're in covenant. I'm here.
Yeah.
This is where we are. So whatever comes up, we're gonna have to deal with it because we're gonna be right here.
Absolutely.
There's a wholeness in that, in knowing that, like for my husband and I, you know, knowing that the core of his person wanted what's best for me, and he loves me, and the same me for him.
That's it.
You know, because marriage and any covenant relationship is what is the most selfless act.
Right.
Yes,
you know, because God, you know, calls wives to submit to their husbands. But then right in that next verse, he says that husbands are to love their wives as Christ loves the church. That's a sacrificial love. He gave his life for the church.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So we're always giving and taking 100%. I don't believe in that 50-50. It's 100 and 100.
Absolutely.
You love me 100%, I'm gonna love you 100%.
Right.
You be with me 100%, I'm gonna be with you 100%. Like that's the exchange
Yes.
that has to happen in order for you to be able to overcome,
That's right.
you know, those situations and those things that arise that you may not have had to deal with in your relationship with your husband,
Absolutely.
that you may have dealt with in childhood or in other relationships.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. Now this
Before you, I want to kind of like touch on something.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of came to my, to my mind, is that I don't know what the statistics are as far as a lot of couples are not doing marriage counseling before they get married.
Yes, that's good.
And I think that's really important to know, is to get in for every couple to do marriage counseling.
Yes.
Before you get married. But the thing about marriage counseling, you have to be honest.
Right.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
You have to be honest about everything.
Yes.
Everything, every question or whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
You can't sugarcoat it just so you can get by.
Yes.
Because that was one of the things I think for me and my wife that kind of helped us out a whole lot, because we were honest in our And
He's not a sugarcoater.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
she everything that was about me,
Yes.
she knew about it.
Absolutely.
You know, all the way down to you know my other kids and stuff like
Yes,
that. You
yes.
know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because the thing about marriage counseling, it kind of really helps you to figure out what you're going to invest in.
Yes.
You know. And
Yes.
you know, and that's one of the things that's the way I looked at it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I already knew what I was investing in
Absolutely.
because I knew where her heart was.
And you touched on something, two things important, and actually you actually already answered the next leading question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Investment. I think that's important to understand. That other person you are serving into is you're investing in,
Yes.
and to get the same return back into your life. I think that's really important. So that was very important that you touched on that.
Right.
You also touched on this, and this is something that even my wife and I, because both my wife and I, we are coming up on 29 years, but we've been married and divorced before, short marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about something that was vital, full disclosure,
Mm-hmm.
talking about everything. My wife and I, when we met and married at first, we didn't even see ourselves. We figured we just, date, have a good time, because we were fresh off the wounds of a previous breakup.
Right.
With one child, per. And so when we met and dated and saw, as we got to know each other better, that, this is something that God was ordaining for us, that He was bringing us together as husband and wife, we realized that we would have to have a serious conversation about everything.
That's
Past
right.
boyfriend, girlfriends,
Right.
Children, your 5-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do you see yourself? If I've often will hear some ministers talk about you actually, you're interviewing your marriage partner, but you're asking general, organic questions that apply to you and where you see yourself to that prospective partner. And so, and you both can, either one of you can again continue to elaborate on the question of full disclosure. How important, you talked about that, but once again, how important is full disclosure? You have a lot of people, particularly those and I'll just touch on this real quick and let you answer. Because you have those of us that are saved and God delivered. We had a past life, okay? But because of shame, we don't want to talk about to our prospective partners. We don't want to bring that part of our past. Well, God delivered me, that's part of my past. I don't want to talk about it, blah, blah. Now, when you have that, and then like you say, certain situations manifest it back, right? So once again, given those circumstances, how important is full disclosure to that prospective partner that you will eventually become your spouse?
Oh man, full disclosure is so very important because who is our adversary? The devil.
That's right.
What is he called? The accuser of the brethren. So any accusation that he can bring up from your past and present it to your spouse, your potential spouse, to cause strife in your relationship, don't you know that's what he's going to do?
Right. That's right.
That's exactly what he's going to do.
That's right.
So full disclosure really just it sets the tone for, you can trust me to be honest with you. You can trust me to tell you everything. You can trust me that I'm going to come back to you if something arises and I need to address it, that I'm going to bring it to you as well so that we can address it together.
Absolutely.
Because we're on the same team. We're allies. We're not adversaries.
That's right.
We're on the same team.
Right.
So it builds that foundational trust of, we're here. This is who I am. This is who you are. This is what you've done. Okay, that's under the blood. You saved. You changed, because we've all had to change.
Absolutely.
But to know that, okay, this is probably how you operated before, but because I see you operating differently, I know that Christ has made that change in your life, and I can trust you with that.
Absolutely. And I want to ask this one other question before I turn it over to you, Dee. How important? And let me just say this, because my wife and I, we had an honest conversation before we got married. There are such things that are called deal breakers. Okay, you have to be honest with that too.
Right.
There are certain things that that right where you are now that you can't handle.
Right.
Okay. Whether it be, verbal, physical abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's as much as full disclosure as you have,
There are
you got to be honest about some things.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I believe that a lot of marriages break up is because that honesty is not there. That part is not there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to determine before you engage in anything else. I can remember watching, and you all familiar with Why Did I Get Married?
Mm-hmm.
The 80-20 rule.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to understand that and be honest and establish that.
Mm-hmm.
So as part of your wholeness, truthfulness and honesty is part of it.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, that's part of the wholeness equation.
Right.
That's right.
And too often times people get married without that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when things arise, now you can't deal with it.
Can't
Right.
deal with it.
But you should have established that on the front end.
Right.
Front end.
Right.
That's right.
That was important.
That's right.
So having said that, do you feel that given those dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
that there are some areas of non-communication that is the main reason
Yes.
for what we deal with in a lot of the marriages and ultimately lead to the divorces?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Because as they say, it's the little foxes that that spoil the vine. So
That's
like
it.
those little things that we fail to communicate
That's
about, if we don't at some point address them, become bigger issues because we give time for for lack of understanding, misunderstandings.
Right.
Then
Yes.
that
Right.
makes room for anger or hurt. Then
That's
that
right.
makes room for resentment.
Yes.
And then resentment just leads to a total breakdown in the relationship if you
Right.
never take the time, because by the time you get to resentment, now you got to do the heavy work.
Yeah.
Now you really have to dig into what the issue is, and then when you get back to where it started, you're like, oh my goodness, if we had just dealt with this,
Right. That's right.
then I would not have been mistrusting him with that.
Right.
That's
Or
right.
he wouldn't have been expecting me to respond this way, which is not at all how I wanted
Right.
to respond.
That's right.
But because we never talked about this thing, that it just compiles,
Right.
And so yeah.
That's why you got to beat the devil to the punch.
Right.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. I like that. I like that. That's right. That's right.
That's it.
So,
Right.
That's right.
Just like like I was saying, earlier, going through, marriage counseling and stuff like that first.
Yeah.
But even though, your marriage is a 24-hour working process
Yeah.
all day long.
Right.
That's
right.
right.
So the thing is, as things come up,
Mhm.
and you know that the Lord is telling you, hey, you need to talk about these things,
Yes.
maybe to your spouse or whoever you need to talk, get it out.
Yes.
Beat the devil to the punch before he
Mhm.
beats you to it.
Yes.
And then it'd be like she said, you can make small issues become big issues.
Right.
So that's the reason why that me and my wife, we talk about a lot of things.
Yes.
And we don't keep anything, like inside or anything
Mhm.
like that. We talk about it, even if we have disagreements.
Yes.
But we talk about it,
Right.
and and that way the devil won't, have any type of play in this game.
That's
He
right.
gonna stay on the side. Right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Another
Right.
thing we do though, just within our relationship, is we know when to take a step back. We know when to take
That's
a little
important.
time
Yeah.
to just
That's
step away,
important.
because sometimes you don't need to say anything,
Yes.
because everything you're gonna say out of your state of emotion right then
Mhm.
is gonna make
Make it
I'll make
worse.
him even angrier.
Yeah. man.
Or he
That's
may
right.
or he may irritate
Throwing
me
gasoline
even
on
more.
fire.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you have to know when to just let's just be quiet for a minute.
Right.
Yes.
But in that time of quietness, you don't allow that resentment
Mhm.
and things like, I knew he was going to do that. Or
Right,
I knew I couldn't trust.
right.
You
Right,
you
right.
don't let that build up. What you have to do is
Mhm.
start seeking the Holy Spirit. Like,
Yes.
God, where you have to always be seeking, where can I make this better?
Mm.
And it's not always
Absolutely.
where did I go
Mhm.
wrong or where did he go
Mhm.
wrong. It
Mhm.
should be always, how can I make the situation
Yes.
better?
Yes.
And my husband does that too, and over the years, if he's made me angry about something or we've had a major disagreement about something, he's, when we come back together, he's like, you know what, D, I just had to go and pray. I just had to
Right.
step away for a minute and go and pray.
Mhm.
He didn't go to create more,
Right.
contentions with our marriage.
right.
But he went away to just step aside to just pray and seek God for how he could approach this differently.
That's right.
And I do the same thing. And I truly believe, that's a large part of why we're still married.
That's right.
Yes.
Right. Because I know what she just touched on. That was one of my biggest things that I had to learn.
Okay.
As far as learning how to, okay, close your mouth for a second. Just take some time to think about the situation.
That's it.
So when you do speak about it, that it come out plain.
Yes.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I like to use that word plain because Bishop used that.
That's right.
Plain. I like for it to come out plain.
And seasoned with grace.
Yes,
There
that
you
was
go.
my name. Yeah.
Yeah.
That your words be few and seasoned with grace.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's gonna be an awesome thing.
And let me just say this. This is also important. What I experienced, even my own marriage and some of the other marriages I see. Anger and all of those emotions are natural responses.
For sure.
That you can't deny the other person the right to feel that way.
Exactly.
I think a lot of times we can be dismissive, and particularly in Christian homes.
Right.
We can be so dismissive of a person's natural response as a part of who they are. The same Father we serve talks about anger.
Right.
He says, "Be angry
and
sin not."
Right.
So that comes from that our Father's
I think
promise.
that's growth. You understand?
For sure.
Yes,
It
that's
takes
right.
time.
Yeah.
Everybody don't figure this out when you first start.
That's right.
That's
You know what I'm
right.
saying? You don't go in
Exactly.
thinking I got all this stuff figured out. Like you said,
Because
it's
you don't.
it's a work in progress.
It's a work in
It
progress.
took me 30 years to figure out that when my wife asked me was I home, but she wasn't asking me. She's telling me she was home.
Right.
But for years, I thought she really asked me, "Are you home?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm home." No, I'm not home.
Right.
And then she did.
Right.
Then why to figure that out?
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
That's
So some things come. I know you had said something earlier. My man got to talking here. I almost forgot every question I asked. But anyway, you had said something about ownership, owning your fault, owning it, and you said you didn't use that term, but that's what you're doing. You have to own it, and sometimes that's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's to own that that I talk too much.
Right.
Own that I gotta own it.
That's right.
Marriage is a mirror.
Yeah.
You look at it's almost like looking in a mirror.
You're right.
And then expose it. Oh goodness. Then are you going to accept what you see in the mirror? I.e., are you going to accept what your wife is telling you or whatever your spouse? Either way, and then accepting that ownership and being in that. And once we accept that, once you own it, then you can move forward. But if you never own it, you're moving forward.
That's right.
I was gonna just address your point of taking ownership. One thing I have all brothers.
Okay.
I'm the only girl. So one thing I've learned about dealing with the male species is sometimes taking ownership feels like an attack on you being respected.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, am I wrong about that?
No,
Okay.
you're right.
Right.
Spot on.
Yeah, because it takes that respect that you talk about is huge.
Yes.
For us.
For a man, yes.
It's huge
Yeah.
for us, and then we
Yes.
feel like we're not.
Mhm.
Oh, you talking about a division? And the Bible
Yes.
talks about that we should dwell with them according to knowledge.
Exactly.
And you talked about the full disclosure and then
Right.
sharing everything because, like you said, you want to get ahead at the end.
Mhm.
That's right. You don't want him bringing up things that are that's going to cause any kind of chasm in the
Right.
relationship.
Right.
But I want to ask you just a simple question. Why do marriages fail? In your opinion, why do they fail?
That's a
Especially in the
very good
church.
question.
Why do they fail? I mean, like I said earlier, if we can't
Mhm.
get it together,
Right.
and why do you think that is?
And that is a huge question.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many different circumstances in the marriage relationship, and it starts with the person's relationship with themselves, like we talked about earlier on, just that need for seeking help, for seeking healing and being willing to grow and to deal with things as you go along. So, I think all of the above, all the things that we've spoken on and talked about, as far as communication could be failing, not seeking out help. And even once you're married, like my husband, we're really big on getting premarital counseling, but even counseling and coaching as you are married, as the years goes along,
Yes.
because you've been married for 50 years, doesn't necessarily mean that in this season that you don't need counseling or
Right.
coaching to get
That's
strategies
right. Absolutely.
for your marriage to be successful from this season going forward.
That's right.
Absolutely.
You know, so
Is it the goal in society that we live in? Keith alluded to, you know, all the social nuances that's taking place that is happening. Is it still the goal now? What you say is that, because I notice, you know, in church, you know, I'm like, you know, not many people getting married. That you know, you got all these young people, single people, you know, being young or old, single. Is that the goal anymore? What would you say?
I feel like it's still the goal. You know, I have, you know,
And
several.
you talking since you said you have beauty shops, so you got mostly women, right?
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I have.
So you have mostly women, so you
Yeah.
hear the conversation. So in those conversations that you hear, is marriage still the goal?
Marriage is still the goal, definitely among women. However, most of my, you know, friends and, you know, some of my, you know, the people that, you know, I'm in conversation with a lot, you know, the feedback that I've gotten a lot is, be so glad you are not out here in these single streets, is what they say. They're like, these guys are something else, you know. But I think that touches on an even greater issue of how society has not really prepared or prepped men to be men in the relationship and to be men of God. I think there's a breakdown there. Okay. Yes. I know that there's a breakdown there. It's hard. It's hard raising children in the society and in the world that we live in now, because what they see as reality and what's real and what's good and what's exciting is so skewed and it's so far off from what really is real in the Word, you know, and what God says about them being mighty men of valor, you know, and being the head of the household and, you know, leading their children and teaching their children, you know, in the fear and the admonition of the Lord, you know, teaching them the Word. And a lot of times our kids become so enthralled with what's going on in the world and what they see right before them that we have to dig through all that to get to the spiritual, relating the spiritual to the natural. And that affects how they are in relationships. And it starts as kids. And these kids grow up to be men and women.
That's right.
And if they don't have a proper perspective of who they are and a proper understanding of their value in Christ, like, how can I be what I need to be for you in a relationship? I mean, even in a friendship, much less a marriage.
I think that what you said is
you know?
very what is it? It's important.
It's so important.
It's so important, because I think when I was coming up, I was telling Keith this before we came in, and I grew up in church. You know, they always say better married than burn. You know,
right.
There's a scripture that says that. You know what I mean? So, you know, with that in mind, you know, then you have young people who are you at that age where your hormones are raging and, you know, you're attracted to other people, this and that. And so, sometimes that can kind of distort your view.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Of marriage, you know, because some of you are, I want to get married so I can have sex.
Right.
And that's not the reason why.
Right.
So some people may get caught up in that because they have not been able to control, you know, or have some self-control to where now when they get married to, you know, this person, because, you know, they have sex, and then when they realize that, oh, wait a minute, I didn't do the homework.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's one of the things. Now, my other question is this, is marriage looked at negatively now? And if it is, why you eating the champion? You champion too. Is it looked at from a man's point of view? You know, 'cause I hear men, you know, we have such a, we go through so much BS, and you know what I mean, as far as our attitudes, and, you know, how we would, I don't want to be, I want to be this or whatever. So, from a man's perspective, just give me, is marriage looked at as negative? Now, women look at it, like I said, she talked about how women is still the goal.
Yes.
But for men, is that the goal?
For men,
that you,
I kind of think it still is the goal. And it's funny you said it, because I was just sitting here thinking that, one of the things we was talking about, you know, everybody look at the church is supposed to set the example.
Right, exactly.
That's right.
You know, they're supposed to set the example. But then when you have individuals inside the church that are going outside doing what they want to do, you know,
that's right.
And that kind of brings a a negative type of energy,
Right. Okay.
you know,
Okay.
to the church.
Okay.
So then you get the people on the outside saying, well, shoot, they still, you know, they ain't all that,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So why should I get myself involved with, you know, with the church or with God, period,
Yeah.
you know? So I think it's still relevant that men do want to get married. They do want to find, you know, the right person for them. But like I was saying earlier, it all boils down to you as an individual.
Okay.
What do you want?
Right.
Now I'm speaking from experience, as far as from how I felt. I got tired of going through what I was going through,
Right.
because I wasn't living right.
Okay.
Okay.
So I had to make a change with myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, you know, when you put that in your heart, because man, like I say, this is just me. Your heart is different from your mind.
Right.
That's
Your
right.
mind tells you other things,
Yeah.
but your heart, you know, God knows where your heart
That's
is.
right. That's
So
right.
He knew where my heart was. He knew that I wanted to make a change in my life. He knew that I wanted to do things differently, find me a good wife, and all that stuff. So he provided that for me. So that, you know, it all boils down to the individual, because that's where it starts. As the individual,
you had to make the change
you
first.
have to make the change first.
Okay.
Yeah.
In order for you to make the change first, God sees all that. So
That's
he's
right.
okay. Well, he's gonna make this change because he already know the beginning and the end.
Right.
That's
So the
correct.
thing is, so he knows that. So he knows, hey, he's making this change. So I'm gonna send him somebody so that can help him make this change
Right.
and continue to go forward.
Right.
You
That's
know,
good.
throughout the seasons and stuff like that. Yeah. So that was one of the things that I think that for men, they'd have to really dig down within themselves to make that change. And once they do that, you know, the Lord will take care of the rest.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
I'm gonna. This is good. This is good. I got a feeling we're gonna need to have a part 2. This is good. And then, you know, as my partner said, you know, I can get started. So he had to reel me back in. But I want to ask this last question because I hear it, and even in sometimes even in my wife and I discourse, like we talked about seasons and discourse.
Right.
Sometimes within the context of our marriage, the word comparison comes up too often times. And we had to realize, my wife and I, is that our marriage still in its own merit. And too often times we make this comparison. Well, pastors, what pastor's wife or champion's wife or champion's husband, you know, Delnita's husband, and all that sort of stuff. So oftentimes, how important of an impact, positively and negatively, does comparison to other relationships have on one's marriage? Because I think that adds to the component. It's just my own humble personal opinion. I think too often times when comparisons are made, that aids in the breakup. Because there's a resentment because you're looking at someone else's marriage or what they're doing, and you want that applicable to your own.
Right.
And that makes the other your significant other, who should be first place in your life. And if you lack anything, the Bible says any man that lacks wisdom, let him ask of the Lord for the enhancement of your marriage. You're looking at somebody else's marriage and say, well, maybe, you know, we need to be doing something like that. How and I want both of your response. How much of an impact from a negative or positive perspective does comparing other marriages have?
I think it has a big impact, in a certain extent, because I know, just like, you know, for myself, and when I, you know, when we go to church, and just pretty much when I see couples in general, and you know, and I see some of the things that they do, you know, I can't lie. Man, I want to be like that. You know, I want to have that. You know, I'm looking for the positive things, of course. But you know, but you never know what's going internal at home or away. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, you know, as far as the positive look at it, you definitely want to, you know, take some little bits and pieces of things that maybe you see,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where couples are doing things that making their marriage strong.
Right.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yes.
That's making their marriage strong. Not to say that it'll work for you,
Mhm.
but the thing is, you know, it you know, pretty much anything that's positive would work.
Right.
You know, if it's positive, if it has a positive in. But as far as the negative things, though, the negative things is like, it's just some of those things that, you know, I don't know, that you don't, you know, that you don't see hardly as far as at home and what they do or da da da.
Right, because the worst thing you can do is that you chime in, especially from a man's perspective. Don't compare me to another man.
That's right.
That's the
That's
worst
right.
thing you can do. What
Yeah,
so-and-so,
that's right.
do what brother so-and-so does.
Yes.
I ain't brother so-and-so. I don't know what goes on with brother
Exactly.
so-and-so.
Yeah,
house.
That's right.
All you seeing what it looks like.
That's right.
You don't know what goes on when they're not in your presence.
Right.
You know, so don't compare me to. So if
Right.
you want to get a man upset or kind of
Comparing something to
Right.
another man.
you compare him to another man, and
Right.
vice versa. Comparing your wife to another.
Right.
That's
Yes.
That's if you,
Right.
if you want to talk about something that you don't want to do,
Right. You want to fight words.
right, there you go.
But see,
Exactly.
you know, by you saying that, and see, that was one of the things, just like, you know, now. So I'm a work in progress.
Right.
My wife knows that, and
I
she's.
am too.
Yeah, we
you
all-
that's
you
right.
all- we all are.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I'm talking about the men right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
work
yeah.
in progress.
Right,
So
right.
you know, like some of the things that she likes to do,
Right.
you know, I don't want to do that. You know,
Mhm.
because I just want to sit on the couch,
Yeah.
pretty much, you know, and watch the games.
Yeah,
and stuff
But
like
when
that.
you do it, don't you
But
enjoy it?
but see, this is what helps me,
Yeah.
because this is it falls back, you know, you want to make a change
Right.
That's
in
right.
your life.
That's
So
right.
these are some of the things, believe it or not, these are some of the things that I have sat back and laid down in my bed and just kind of like, you know, just thought about things like, man, I could see myself up there speaking, talking to young people, doing this
Yes.
and doing that. I had these kind of thoughts before.
Mhm.
So I think with my wife, you know, her kind of like bringing, you know, some of this,
Right,
trying to bring some of
right,
these
right.
things out of me,
Yes. Yes.
you know,
Yes.
that's why I'm not too resentment, you know, to it. Because I say, resisted to it, yeah, my bad. But anyway,
Sound like my
yeah,
wife.
she'll correct me, that's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah.
She can.
But that's
Yes,
see,
she
that's the
can.
thing.
That's
like,
right.
I
That's
like,
right.
I like to
She understands the male speech.
Yeah,
There you go.
Hers anyway.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
You know, we joke about that sometimes.
Right,
right.
But anyway, you know, that's just that's the change that I want for myself.
Okay.
So that's the reason why I do I do the things that I do as far as trying to make changes so I can be able to just to be a positive impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The compromise. that we
Yeah.
touched
Right,
on.
right.
The
I
sacrifices.
remember.
I want to just say this
Yeah, go ahead,
before I
go ahead,
forget.
go ahead.
You know, it's because I this is the way I kind of like took a lot of things as far as if it's not going to physically hurt you,
Mm-hmm.
or just just physically hurt you or
Right.
just bother you, you know what's the harm?
Right.
So why go out there and see what it
Absolutely.
see what it does.
Well, I was gonna say a lot of times, we first got married. Before we married, we dated. We I used to go to the store
Right.
with her and all that.
Uh-huh.
So we got married, and then I'm sitting on the couch. She said, "Well, you want to go to the store?" I said, "No." And she was like, "Why you went before we got? You used to go." Well,
Right.
that's the only time not the only time, but I want to spend time with you. You coming back? So what's the problem?
right.
Yeah, she didn't like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Absolutely.
It took me a while to figure that out.
Right.
So now, if she had you want to go to the store, I get on up and go.
Right.
Even though I may want to what? Sit
Stay
and
at
watch.
home. Right.
But I get up and go because that's time that she,
Right.
that's time that she likes. That
That she
time,
can talk
you
and
know,
walk.
talk and
Absolutely.
walk or just be there. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So
for
that's
sure.
time that she, so I had to make that adjustment
Right.
and compromise.
That's right.
Just not, in doing so, I didn't tell her
Right.
I just figured it out.
That's what I was about to say. I'm glad you figured that out. You figured out that the question wasn't really, do you want to go to the store? But it was really more like, let's go to the store.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny you say that because we still do that. Still do that to me sometimes too. But that's part of being married for 17 years.
Right.
Because you know how to read your spouse.
Right.
When she really wants you to go. But if it's one of those things, it depends on how she asks you.
Yeah.
When I can say no.
Right.
You got to know when to say no.
You gotta know when
And
to
then
say no.
when you know, then you got to know when to say yes.
I'm real slow. It took me a little longer.
Well, my wife know how to motivate me in doing things like that because she and we have to be honest with us, man. We all have egos, right? So she know how to stroke my ego. Say, baby, I just love the way you do such and such. That's her manipulation.
Right.
Get what she wants.
Right.
You know, so
but that works though.
It works. That's all part of the sacrifice, right?
There you go.
That's all part of the
It's all
sacrifice.
Now,
part of it.
it's funny. I have a really quick funny story about that. Like Champion, when he cleans the kitchen, I mean, like really cleans the kitchen, like it's spotless. Like you can go in and cook like to cater for people.
Right.
And so I was like, "Oh, honey, you are amazing at that. You
Yeah.
should be the kitchen doer." That didn't work.
It didn't work.
You should be the designated kitchen doer. I mean, it works every now and then. Yeah. But I wanted to touch on, just the question about comparison. And I've heard this quote before. I don't know who it's by, but it just says that comparison is the thief of joy. It's the thief of all joy.
Okay.
And so one of the things we have to remember is when we're looking at someone else and, what we feel like they have or how good they have it, we don't know what it took for them to get there and what it takes for them to sustain where they are.
Right. Exactly.
So we have to accept and be grateful for the fact that God graces us to walk our path. He didn't grace us to walk someone else's path.
That's right.
He didn't grace me to be someone else's wife. He graced me to be Champion's wife. So I have to dwell with him according to knowledge. He has to dwell with me according to knowledge.
That's good.
And we have to stay in our lane. I have to stay in my lane of being the best wife that I can be to him. And he's in his lane of being the best husband that he can be to me. And like he said, in a positive light, as far as not really comparison, but just noticing like some things that people may do. You take bits and pieces of that you can apply in your own marriage, but you want to apply it to make your spouse better and to be better yourself, to enhance your relationship within your marriage. And so that's a positive way to address that.
Well, like my man said, we might have to have a part 2.
Okay.
But what I want you to do next, I just want you to talk about the conference that's coming up in December. Just let the audience know that hey, what's going on, and then promote that. Okay. And then we're gonna wrap it up.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for doing this with us. This is so awesome. We really enjoy the conversation. Honey, do you want to talk first?
No, I'm gonna do it.
Okay. Okay, so like I said, I'm Delnita Smith. This is my husband, Champion Smith, and we are hosting our first couples retreat December 1st through 3rd, and we are so excited about it to be able to share with you guys just some strategies for love and for leading for each other in your home, for healing within yourself and in your marriage. But then also being able to take some strategies for having a successful marriage going forward. We all have things that we have to address and overcome on a consistent basis, but how do we hang in there together to do that? So those are some of the things that we're going to be addressing among a lot of other things. It's going to be an amazing time of just connecting and just, just refocusing in on one another. And there's going to be so much joy and laughter. There may be some tears because, like I said, there's going to be some things shed so that we can heal and so that we can continue to grow together in love and in grace and in the power that God has placed in us as a couple.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate it. And we're going to wrap it up. Again, I'm Edwin T. Lee.
And I'm Keith Jackson.
The elephant in the room. Thank you for joining us.
All right. Thank you.
Blessing.